Most of the staff here at DYKG are 90s kids, and you might think that based on our videos we have a preference for Nintendo systems, but the reality is that all of us grew up with the PlayStation 1, and nothing demonstrates a monumental shift in the gaming landscape like the first PlayStation. The system's opening is extraordinary, providing a feeling of major change in video games. The console gave those who love the gaming medium a chance to discover a vast range of interactive experiences, film tie-ins, live-action video cutscenes, and of course CD quality music from licensed bands not seen before the new disc-based storage format. The system boasted some incredible cult titles such as Vagrant Story, the birth of Crash Bandicoot, and the creation of the groundbreaking Resident Evil franchise. And while we'll definitely be talking about all of these titles in the video, we want to start by looking at another sequel to a hugely popular and influential title which caused waves of controversy throughout its life, Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto 2 was a minor evolution of the series from its first entry as well as the expansion, GTA London, but a lot of consideration was made in not just its gameplay changes, but many of the references strewn across the streets of Anywhere City. One of the locations featured in this title is the safe houses in which the player can save their game, large-scale churches donning a neon sign which reads "Jesus Saves." These signs have a tendency, as dystopian neon trimmings often do, to flicker. This flickering changes the text to read, "You save," a hint towards what the building's purpose actually is. One save point, however, has another line written on top of it. It reads, "Revelations Club 1317. This text is of course a reference to the Book of Revelation, the final book of the Bible, but specifically chapter 13, verse 17. This verse in the King James Bible reads, "And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." This is an allusion to the number of the beast, 666, clearly the inspirational figure for the player character's actions, and as such, perhaps also the player. Another uniquely PS1 title is Vagrant Story, which is recognised not just as a fantastic RPG, but for its presence within the much larger universe featured in Square's library of titles. And one of the game's most critically well-received elements was its writing. When asked about the translation efforts made for the game, Alexander O. Smith, who worked on the game's localization, revealed that much of the game was clearly already Shakespearean in nature, with its characters and visual style. These can clearly be seen with the character Romeo Guildenstern, who is named after both Romeo of Romeo and Juliet, as well as Guildenstern from Hamlet. However, he believed that the end result was not necessarily Shakespearean, as while it did include clever wordplay and some slightly archaic words, it did not deviate too far from the language of the 20th century. The dialogue is also not iambic pentameter. Instead, he said that if anything applied as a stylistic influence on the game's English writing, it would have been the then recently released book, A Game of Thrones, which was first published in August 1996, over 3 years before the game's release. Vagrant Story took a step away from Final Fantasy, but the Final Fantasy games also dipped into inspiration from some unlikely sources. Before we move on to the next bit of trivia, we'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Buy. If you've ever used American sites to buy things from Japan, you've probably noticed how much sellers jack up the price, and it can be a lot. This is where Buy comes in. Buy is a service that places orders or bids on your behalf on Japanese shopping and auction sites, then ships the item straight to you without any absurd price hikes. This includes sites like Rakuten, Amazon Japan, and Yahoo Japan Auction. So if you've been waiting to get hold of that Japanese game or piece of merch, but don't want to pay insane rate, this service will let you get your hands on that stuff at a more affordable price. Buy is easy to use and offers support in several languages, which of course includes English. They also ship worldwide, including North America, Europe, and Oceania. Buy have over half a dozen international shipping methods, multiple payment methods, and 4 different insurance plans to match your needs. Buy is also giving DidYouKnowGaming viewers a 2,000 yen, which is about $18, first-time purchase coupon for signing up through the link below. So if you want to try out this great service and get 2,000 yen off your first order, check out Buy using the link below. Now, back to the trivia. Final Fantasy IX was the last in the series to release for the first PlayStation, but it does make reference to games released on other systems, such as Sony's rival mascot, Mario. The first time that the party winds up in Trino, an active time event triggers, which shows markers past 2 children, big sister Gianna and little brother Mario. While Mario's reference is clear, Gianna could also be a reference to the Gianna sisters, a game that essentially served as a bootleg version of the first Mario game created for the Commodore 64 and other home computers. Another reference to a non-PlayStation game comes courtesy of a PlayStation Magazine interview with localization director Brody Phillips. At an early stage in the game, Puck will speak the line, "Engage according to mission parameters," a reference to Unreal Tournament, in which the character Zan Krigor can be heard saying,
"Engage according to operational parameters."
Another nod in Final Fantasy IX actually references Resident Evil, a very different kind of game. Inspecting the water fountain in Lindblom Castle has the flavor text, "Looks like there's no place to insert the medal." Seeing as this fountain serves no other purpose in the game, not just in terms of plot point or puzzle, it has been widely assumed that this text serves as an allusion to Resident Evil 2. The PS1 wasn't just for highbrow titles, of course. The console had its fair share of licensed series looking to enter the gaming space, including one of our favourite childhood cartoons, the Rugrats. Search for Reptar actually holds a number of interesting secrets in its data which are otherwise inaccessible in the game, including several unused levels. These include the return of Mr. Friend, a sequel to the mysterious Mr. Friend. The level involves having to defeat Mr. Friend, who will then fall apart and disappear. The level is clearly unfinished, as there is no way to reach the next level. This level includes 2 unused items, a daytime version of Tommy's airplane, and the ball-popping push toy that Tommy is seen using in the show's opening. Both can be carried like any other normal item, suggesting that they, along with this level, were dropped quite late into the game's development. 2 other unused levels can also be found in the data, called Be Bad and Ice Cream Mountain. Be Bad will result in the game crashing on a load attempt, but its internal level ID, 19, places it between Egg Hunt and No More Cookies, which are both minigames, suggesting that Be Bad would also have been some kind of minigame. Ice Cream Mountain also results in a crash, but the final game does include a set of levels called Ice Cream Mountain Hole 1, 2, etc., a mini-golf minigame, perhaps suggesting that the unused Ice Cream Mountain stage would have been a fully explorable level instead. Another big hit on the PS1 was Tenchu's Stealth Assassin, but this franchise has since unfortunately retreated to the shadows, somewhat in keeping with the game's main theme. The game was a huge effort from its developers, but one name attributed to the game was actually Japanese actor and martial artist Sho Kosugi, who was responsible for the main character Rikimaru's motion capture, as well as providing all of his Japanese voice work. His son, Kane Kosugi, was also involved. Kane provided the motion capture for the antagonist character, Onikage. While this fact is virtually unknown in the West, other than for astute readers of the game's credits, it was heavily promoted in its native Japan, going so far as to include a pretty rare making-of CD with snippets of the motion capture sessions as a special bonus to people who pre-ordered the original Japanese release early in 1998. One popular remake for the PS1 was Dragon Quest IV, which originally took the 2D game and pushed it into 3D using Dragon Quest VII's 3D engine, but only in Japan. Almost every element of the game received an update, including the main character sprites, which were changed to better match the original artwork, which was featured prominently in the game's manual. Some new features were added to the title, including a new chapter which sees Saro become a usable party member, a command that allows the player to talk amongst their party a la Dragon Quest VII, and the ability to disable AI control for full party members so that the player can take control. Despite selling over 1 million copies in Japan by the end of 2001, the title never saw a full English localization, though plans for one did take place. Enix America intended to release the remake to North America in 2002, even going so far as to advertise the upcoming release on the back cover of Dragon Quest VII's manual. The release was later cancelled, however, after the developer Heartbeat closed operations prior to the localization's completion. Enix later explained that the time and cost of another company to localize the game would have been far too expensive, as only Heartbeat was familiar with the game's designs, and a new company taking over would have involved a steep learning curve and steep expenses. We've mentioned some behind the scenes details for some games, but one secret with Crash Bandicoot 3 is actually in its gameplay, though nigh on impossible to execute without tool assistance. By bouncing on 4 enemies in a row, the player gains an extra life in addition to 3 1-perp from each of the previous 3 enemies in that combo. However, the bonuses that come from bouncing combos go further beyond into the triple-digit combos that give key items not intended, such as crystals. These can only be obtained using an emulator and its functions like in a tool-assisted speedrun. One method in particular is to build up the bounce combo on an iron arrow crate and then continue the combo on enemies to start reaping these items. It's unknown why these triple-digit combo bonuses exist at all, but a likely explanation is that there's something in the game's code affecting the item tables. On screen are some of the bonuses that can be earned from bouncing combos, many of which are items with a set number found throughout the entire game, going into several hundred bounces. Arguably one of the most famous and most successful PlayStation titles is Resident Evil 2. According to a 1998 PlayStation Magazine interview with the game's director, Hideki Kamiya, and writer Noboru Sugimura, they were asked about the Chief of Police character Brian Irons and how he came to be. Kamiya stated that Irons was originally going to be a normal police chief. His chubby exterior would still be the same, but he would be seen wearing his uniform properly, as well as talking like a normal officer. Sugimura credited himself as the one who made Brian's deviant personality. Once they changed the police station building from a modern day one to something based on an old art museum, someone in the development team commented that it would be strange if there were just random medals lying around the office. Then Sugimura said, "Well, we'll just have to make the police chief a weirdo then." And Irons was what they came up with. They then created the character's hidden room and the idea that Chief Irons had been taking bribes from Umbrella, which gave him an insane grin on his face. Those who first saw the idea didn't think it was very realistic, but Sugimura said that reality depends on persuasion and belief. So long as that everything was consistent, it would appear real. Kamiya stated that he was initially against turning Irons into a weirdo and protested it, but as development progressed, the staff grew to like the idea and began coming up with ridiculous details to complement the personality shift. One example cited was the hallway's torches leading to Irons' hidden room. The person who made them said, "The chief uses those to light a fire when he has his rituals." After confirming that Brian Irons' name appeared as a signature on the player select screen ID card in the first Resident Evil game, Kamiya revealed that he wanted to use an iron sound for both the first name and surname when coming up with the name, and decided that Brian Irons worked perfectly. He didn't think that it would be anything more than a light-hearted signature, but Sugimura commented that he didn't know that, and that when Resident Evil 2's development started, the police chief was actually named Gordon until someone pointed out he was already given the name Brian Irons and stuck with it to connect to the first game. Did you also know that Ocarina of Time on the N64 has several unused anti-piracy measures to trap the player? Or that the English localizer for several Pokemon games secretly snuck in a few references to memes? For more facts, check out our videos on N64 games and memes in video games. So thank you for all your kind feedback on the last video, I very much appreciate it, and I'm glad you're enjoying the videos. That's all I really wanted to say. You know, keep up the great work. Love you guys. Peace.